Alright, fellow citizens, I want you to be very clear about something that I'm getting ready to transfer to you right now from a digital tape recorder. Now, for one, what I want you to understand is that people that are able to disclose specific aspects about research that are going on right now, whether they know the truth or not, if they do know the truth, they're only allowed to disclose so much because of the research. And now, in reference to human experimentation, okay, it's protected by the government and the huge institutions and research facilities that are literally engaged in it because it's illegal as hell. Non-consensual human experimentation is illegal as hell. It literally violates international law, the Nuremberg Law, and the Constitution. Okay, and since these expeditions are being done illegally and non-consensually, the government also makes sure that people who are involved in the research are not allowed to expose what they're involved in and what they're doing, but they also control a huge aspect of the media, okay? And since a lot of things are getting out as a result of research by third parties, they can only control so much because the internet has not been censored yet. So when a person gets on a radio broadcast who might know the entire scope of the truth or might not, or who might be only allowed to tell part of the truth, might also engage in disinformation, or he might engage in disinformation unknowingly in reference to the actual scope of what is already known, okay, and what is already used as a result of what is known in research, okay. I want you to pay close attention here, close attention to what this individual is saying. Hang on 1 second, though.
Well, it's very interesting. You see, interesting you think about every day. Yes,
all right, now listen to this very closely.
We're becoming more and more familiar with machine parts being grafted onto people's bodies. It's happening every day. Okay, we were talking about Ted Williams. You were talking about Walt Disney before the break about uploading memory. What's the future hold here? Well, it's very interesting. You see, one of the greatest problems we have is when we get killed, that seems to be the end. Now, many people believe that isn't the end, obviously, but there seems to be a great deal of comfort in the thought that we can hang around here in our real world and continue to function. And if you could make a backup of your mind, just as you do your videos or your data on your computer, perhaps you'd have the opportunity to reconstruct yourself at some point. And being able to back up your memories and perhaps play them back into your head later would mean you would never forget anything. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, presently, there is actually some very good information being created about how a mind upload would work. And it all starts with a tiny worm called C. elegans. This is a very simple little organism, and it's really a nematode, and it has less than 1,000 cells in its entire body. And 302 of those are neurons, brain cells. And this little worm has had its body mapped out cell by cell and its neurons mapped out and actually modeled in the computer at this point. So they have computer models of this little nematode, this little worm, and it's in a virtual environment, and they tweak it and it moves just like the actual animal. So this is the first animal to be digitally modeled from one end to the other. And they consider that within a couple of years now, they'll have all of its genes mapped and be able to predict the birth and destiny of every cell in it and make complete, perfect, high-fidelity models of it. This is the very beginning. If we can do that with one animal, we get more powerful computers, we go to the next stage. And pretty soon we reach the point where it's predicted that will be by 2025 or so, we should have the computer capability to completely store a person's brain, the complete model of it, how their mind operates, and run it in the computer. You could literally live forever that way, couldn't you? Well, as long as the power doesn't go off or the backup saved, absolutely. You know, that's one of the big issues. Right now, we think about prosthetic limbs, but very few people think about prosthetic brains. What happens if you've got a brain injury and your body is fine? You know, this is the opposite end of the spectrum. And in times past, it was been expected that when your head was damaged or destroyed, you were gone. Yet, if we had this sort of capability, we could record the information in your head and perhaps plug a computer in to act as a stand-in. Your mind could literally be in a computer and run your body remotely. Or your mind could be loaded in a computer and run many ways that the information in your mind could end up being fully functional in a computer. Now, early models aren't going to be that good. It's like anything. You get the cheesy stuff in the beginning where they're just learning, and then it gets better in resolution and function as time passes. It's actually been estimated by next year, by 2013, we should be able to have the computers necessary to do a working model of the human mind. Not the complete cell-by-cell model, but one that actually functions and acts as a human being. So we're really not that far away from the capability, but there are a couple things that do still stand in the way, such as how to scan a person's mind in that detail. There are many questions still to be answered, but there are also some amazing things that can be done. For instance, imagine being scanned into the computer, having a model of your mind, and then setting the clock speed of the computer 1,000,000 times faster. Now, space 30 you could experience a year's time. So you have a particularly difficult problem. And if you can do this on a short-term basis, people to put on a headset, interface with a computer, plug into that machine, and spend a couple of seconds in the hookup and having weeks to work out a difficult problem in a virtual space. And at the end of that time, you take off the headset, you've had a week to work on a problem, or even a week of vacation. And it's only been a 1 or 2 second window in reality.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we can hook up something to your brain and then video, let's say you then dream, fall asleep and you dream. Would they be able to videotape what the mind is thinking in that dream? And so you could look at it like you're looking at a DVD.
In fact, that has already been done. And that's one of the key steps to getting to the point where we can understand how mind uploading can happen. You see, a few months ago, they were doing some research by scanning different sections of the brain that are necessary to imagine pictures in your head. And there are functional units in your brain, just like there are in your computer, and each has a job. And so your graphic hardware, let's say, is in a certain part of the brain. And by scanning the electrical activity, they were able to see the images from inside the brain that somebody was looking at. Later, they even reached the point where they could take a recording of your brain's electrical activity and turn it back into images. Now, this has a lot of uses. They've come up with machines that allow people who are paralyzed, who have locked-in syndrome, where their body is paralyzed, they're unable to speak or move, and yet they're fully conscious. Using this technology, they've been able to give them the ability to use a computer terminal and type on it. Paralyzed people now have the ability to think certain things, images, sounds, words, and activate machinery. And we're reaching the point where pretty soon we'll be able to hook this hardware up to people, let's say, in a state of a coma. We've always wondered what's going through their minds. Very shortly, we should be able to see the images directly, what they're imaging in their head while they're in that state, if anything.
That's pretty dramatic, isn't it?
Well, it is. You know, we've had machines that can read words and concepts out of people's minds for a very long time. And it started in a very humble way. I think a lot of people know what a CAT scan or a PET scan is.
Yeah.
The sort of brain scan they used to do, and they still do it today. Well, in a PET scan, the name PET comes from positron emission tomography, and that just basically means they put a special type of glucose in your bloodstream. And as your brain thinks, it uses the glucose, that's the fuel for the cells, and the positrons are emitted in the parts of the brain where you're most active. So by thinking of different things, they'll show you pictures, show you flashcards, or play sounds to you. They were able to map out the active regions of the brain where those activities are actually happening. And then, moving ahead with the technologies we have now, very faint magnetic field detectors and electrical signals being sorted out by computer software, they were able to map out the activity in the brain to the point where they could see what you were seeing, what you were imagining, and the words you were thinking. And, you know, it's jokingly been referred to as something they would go on in the airports to screen people to see if they were thinking about a bomb or an explosive or a threat.
Yeah.
And that actually, to a degree, that's being done.
Remote neural monitoring, which also includes the monitors in your grocery stores, airports. You would not believe what I know. I'm a target of this crime, remote neural monitoring. Let me tell you something about this technology. A target can be at any place, okay, as a result of either neural implantation as far as RFID transreceiver implants, and John Hall stating that it's gotten to the point now to where even neural implants aren't even needed anymore. The nanotechnology that's being used in the community in reference to research. Understand this and be clear. The human brain emits a bioelectric frequency. Okay, they come to understand what the bioelectric resonance frequency is of a particular target's brain, and once they got that figured out in reference to what it is, they basically just keep track of it through the extra low frequency wave spectrum that is already in each and every community and each and every area. It's literally in the air. And they do nothing but step it down and modulate their frequency they're transmitting from to interface with the bioelectric frequency of the target's brain. And as a result, thoughts are read in real time. Subvocal speech is listened to as a result of them having access to the target's brain by them piggybacking on the frequency of the brain and being able to hear everything that's in the target's audio cortex and being able to see everything that's in the target's video cortex. And also the evoked potentials, which are part of the actual transmissions that are being done in the brain at the time, because the evoked thought potentials, thoughts are always associated to language or pictorial images. Yeah. So as a result of the way the evoked potentials process information with language that subscribe to each evoked potential, then we can see how the audio cortex is tapped into and how the video cortex is tapped into. And as a result, mind reading is literally done in real time. But since their computers are running on trillions of flops per second, and since information is scrutinized up into the brain, like I can have a thought process right now that I'm verbalizing. What I'm verbalizing was already filtered through my unconscious, my preconscious, and my consciousness. It was literally filtered through the unconscious and the preconscious before it even got up through the consciousness, where language is consciously attached to it, subvocal speech. Now they're already able to tap into the unconscious and preconscious filtering of these deliberations. And as a result, the computer is able to figure out what's literally being processed. Okay? So the computer that's running on trillions of flops per second is already deciphering what is being read. And then what it does is it picks electronic harassment that's directly attached to the theme of what's being read and will literally transmit back to the target dialogue that is harassing in reference to the theme of what is read. That's like if a target thinks I'm going to go to Walmart, they already know that a target is thinking that as a result of it being processed from the unconscious to the preconscious. By the time it gets to the consciousness, they're already transmitting dialogue that is harassing about that thought back to the target. That's why a lot of targets, like the videos that you'll see online by going to YouTube and typing in remote neural monitoring and looking at the NYC Chronicle videos, she talks about how she's even being harassed about her thoughts before they're even completed. Yeah, in her mind. That's because they're being read as they're being processed from the unconscious to the preconscious, because the computer runs on trillions of flops per second, a lot faster than the brain. The artificial intelligence then picks out harassing dialogue sets. It's nothing but a dictionary of voice. It's voice prints of human beings, anywhere between 3 and 5 separate human beings' voice prints that they incorporate within the software. Then the software picks dialogue sets based on an incorporated dictionary that also of the English language or any other language, and it also is got slang terms that are also directly incorporated within the software. The software then, that is run through the artificial intelligence, picks out specific words that compose sentences and commentary based on the theme of the evoked potentials that are read, and then will transmit the harassing dialogue back to the target even before the total evoked potential is processed up into the consciousness. And that is achieved because of the simple fact that the computer is running trillions of times faster than the human brain is processing the information up and through the consciousness. That's why targets are even literally being harassed about their own evoked potentials, their thoughts, before their thoughts are even completed in real time in consciousness, because they're being processed up through the unconscious and the preconscious as a result of sensory input that is achieved through the construct of the actual thought process that is derived from the perceptual information the target's getting from the environment, from experience, including current experience and deliberations based on the environment and current experiences or past experiences. This also comes into play how memories are literally being seen on their remote neural monitoring based on the memories being processed through the video and audio cortex. And this is literally how we're harassed as a result of what we experience. My name is Leslie Williams. I'm in San Diego, California. And my brain is literally being used for remote neural monitoring so they can scrutinize what's being processed. So in other words, if a target of remote neural monitoring is processing that they're going to go to Walmart, they see that that is being processed. The artificial intelligence scrutinizes the information, and then it literally is set up to where, because the technology is literally activated to where it communicates with the monitor of the remote neural monitoring, the computer. And then what it does is it contacts the manager, who then in turn places the organized stalkers around the target's path as they're getting ready, as they're going to Walmart and as they arrive in Walmart. Okay, and that's how targets can't figure out, that's one of the ways targets can't figure out how are all these people in environments that I'm going to before I even get there, and they do towards me what I've been in ways that I've been harassed in other environments. How did they arrive on the scene before I got there? Because they were being remotely neurally monitored. Yeah, and the monitor of the monitor set these people up along these routes to harass the target before the target even arrived on the scene of where they were going, like to Walmarts. And this is one way that a target is psychologically undermined as a result of being a target of organized stalking expeditions. I want you to know that I make these videos to help my fellow targets to deconstruct the mysticism. And what I say by mysticism is because it's a mystery to targets who don't know about remote neural monitoring, remote neural influencing, remote neural stimulating, electronic harassment, which is nothing but the microwave auditory effect, voice to skull, and organized stalking, the physical organized stalkers they put along a target's path. It's a mystery to them because they don't understand how all this is being done towards them, and especially including the microwave auditory effect, how they're literally harassed through electronic means, where they literally hear them being literally harassed based on what they're thinking, because the electronic harassment is incorporated within the same technology the remote neural monitoring is running. Okay, and so they don't know how all this is being done because they can't see the perpetrators that are transmitting it to them. They don't even know that it's electronic means that are being transmitted to them. Okay, so they don't know. To them it's a mystery. I'm here to demystify the mystery, to deconstruct how these operations are implemented so targets can have names and descriptions of how this is being perpetrated towards them, so they can then regain their mental posture and their mental deliberations, so they can scrutinize the information and debunk it for how their brain is perceiving it, since they didn't have a label to describe it. I literally make these videos. I spend my money on the batteries, the memory cards, the video cameras themselves, and what I got to live through in order to survive this campaign in itself, the extra money I got to spend to survive it, and to expose it to help my fellow targets, and to expose these expeditions out in the community so people can know the truth. We are literally being tortured, okay, for money, because the end result is to make money off the target breaking down, discrediting the target as a result of when they do break down through doctors and neighborhood hospitals, the research, the money they make off the research of the brain mapping. Okay, that's one angle they make money off of. They make money off the racketeering of the target's property that they take from the target, okay, because they make destitution of a target by blacklisting them from employment, staging vehicle accidents so they don't have a car to sleep in, and by creating homelessness of targets. And they use all of these destitutions and circumstances that are created as a result to exploit what the target's got by taking legal custody of the target, to take everything they got, their property, okay, their real estate, their personal properties and belongings, everything from clothes to shoes to computers to laptops to TVs, everything they got, okay, and then they take over the target's finances, what's in their bank account, and they go after people on disability to take over legal custody of their monthly Social Security check, to exploit their Medicare. That's done through torture that is continually brought about towards them in syndicated run group homes. They're then blamed for incidences that are brought about towards the target in these group homes, and then told they got to go into the hospital to get on medication because they're out of control. These are staged events inside these group homes. They then petition them into the hospital as a result of having probate legal custody of them, and then will petition them into the hospital based on these lies that they're out of control as a result of the target reacting to provocations that are brought about towards them in these group homes. They're staged incidences. And then they're pipelined to the hospital where the doctor will then bilk the Medicare out of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And when that Medicare pays the doctors, they kick it back to the active participants in the staged incidences that run the group homes. It's organized crime in a system that are buying HUD houses, and then they go hunting after people on disability. And then the targets are also sexually exploited in these group homes. That's where also the brain entrainment comes in for prostitution, where they then will literally threaten and intimidate and assault targets to give up sex, okay, until they do, because they got to think about, well, I better cooperate or I'm going to get beat up or raped. As a result of thinking this, a neural pathway is developed. They identify and mark that neural pathway using remote neural monitoring, and then we'll go back and stimulate it to bring those thoughts back into current consciousness in real time for another individual they bring by into the group home or a event in another home that they're connected to, even if it's not even a home they're directly connected to. It could be a home or a place that they take the target to, and then they'll stimulate that neural pathway where all the thought processes about I better cooperate and give up sex or I'll be beat up or raped are brought back into current consciousness and played out in real time, so the target cooperates with the individual they bring along that target's path on that day to give up sex to them. And that person who's getting the sex is paying the people that are directly associated to the person who's holding the remote neural monitor, and that person is directly connected to the person that has legal custody of the target now. It's nothing but human trafficking, racketeering, sexual exploitation, and torture for money. My name is Leslie Williams. I exposed these crimes in San Diego, California, July 4th, 2012, Independence Day, because remote neural monitoring is used to neurally enslave. And if you're neurally enslaved, you do not have independence. And I make these videos to inform the public and to help my fellow targets who are out there in a lot worse, dire situations than I am, that have no money, that are being sexually exploited just so they can eat, and who are being neurally enslaved to continue to do so just so they can eat by extreme criminals. Okay, and they're literally setting the stage to take away my Social Security. Yeah, because they figure once they get a hold of me, they can reapply for it in my name. Google 4 mentally disabled individuals kept in a basement for 10 years. That person that had legal custody of them had legal custody of their Social Security checks, and they literally kept them in a basement, tied and chained to boilers in a basement so they could take over the legal custody of their checks. And she had the identification cards of 50 other people on disability. How did she even get legal custody of these individuals to begin with? She had a felony on her record for murder, where she literally put an ex-boyfriend in a closet and starved him to death. How did she get legal custody of 4 people on disability? Plus, how did she get the identification cards of 50 other people on disability? I'm a single woman. I'm on disability. They go after single women, people on disability, the elderly. They're into different types of racketeering schemes you can think of. My name is Leslie Williams. I make these videos to inform the public about what's happening to me in San Diego. And I am here to tell you today, the San Diego police are directly involved in these crimes. They're not just allowing it or protecting it. They are literally directly involved in it. And I will also tell you today, as a result of extensive experience about what I experienced in Michigan, and as a result of extensive research based on what my other targets are blogging about, they are directly involved in social services, doctors in nearby hospitals, county mental health in each state, psychiatrists, doctors, and they literally had the power positions in the community to connect with private doctors who own their own firms, therapists that own their own therapy, businesses, because it's organized crime in the system. And they also directly connected to fire department EMS, as well as other privately owned EMS companies. They have their own private EMS services. I'm exposing these crimes on the internet. Make sure you look at the comments feature of this YouTube video for another video in relation to the theme of what's been described in this one. Thank you.